It was one of those quiet mornings where nothing feels urgent until suddenly everything does. Coffee cooling beside the keyboard, notifications stacking up, and that familiar sense that a story everyone's watching has reached a strange pause. The public silence around Nancy Guthrie's unexplained absence had stretched long enough to feel heavy, and Savannah Guthrie's decision to step back from speaking only deepened the tension. People weren't just watching the situation unfold. They were reading into every absence of words. That's when something unexpected happened. Not on television, not in a statement, but inside a small private conversation among women who knew the pressure of public life too well. Drew Barrymore, usually open but rarely intrusive, spoke in a way that shifted the entire emotional framing. What she shared wasn't information. It was understanding. And once heard, it became impossible to unsee the deeper story behind Savannah's composure. Drew Barrymore's quiet intervention. Drew didn't speak as a celebrity or commentator. She spoke as someone who has spent decades unpacking the invisible weight of family dynamics. In that private conversation, she wasn't diagnosing or speculating. She was recognizing patterns she had seen before, both in herself and in others, shaped by high-expectation parenting. She talked about Savannah not as a media figure, but as a daughter molded by devotion and discipline. Drew explained that Savannah's steadiness wasn't emotional distance. It was emotional training, a way of showing love through control, gratitude through composure. Drew has always believed that silence can carry more history than speech, and what she noticed now was how Savannah's restraint mirrored the values she was raised with. This wasn't about hiding pain. It was about honoring a legacy that prized strength over display. Drew's voice wasn't dramatic. It was careful, almost protective, as if naming this truth was itself an act of respect. The architecture of a mother-daughter bond. According to Drew, the bond between Savannah and her mother was built like a structure designed to withstand storms. After loss reshaped their family early, order became safety, and resilience became love. Nancy Guthrie believed deeply in preparation, self-command, and meeting life with readiness rather than reaction. Savannah absorbed that philosophy not through lectures, but through example. Love was shown in expectation. Pride was expressed through confidence in capability. Drew emphasized that this kind of bond doesn't feel cold from the inside. It feels purposeful. Savannah grew up knowing her mother trusted her to handle hard things, and that trust became a standard she held herself to relentlessly. When uncertainty enters that kind of system, the instinct isn't collapse, it's structure. Drew said what people are interpreting as emotional distance is actually emotional loyalty. Savannah isn't stepping back from care. She's stepping forward in the only language of devotion she was ever taught. Strength as proof of love. One of Drew's most striking insights was the idea that strength became Savannah's proof of connection. Not achievement for applause, but composure as reassurance. From a young age, Savannah learned that steadiness calmed others, especially her mother. So steadiness became a gift she offered instinctively. Drew shared memories of Savannah framing challenges not in terms of feeling, but in terms of response. What's the plan? What's the next right step? That mindset builds leaders, but it also narrows emotional permission. Drew was careful not to criticize Nancy's influence. She described it as love expressed through belief in toughness. The challenge comes when life presents something that can't be managed neatly. In those moments, the trained response is to tighten control, not release it. Savannah's public calm, Drew suggested, isn't denial. It's an act of fidelity to a lifelong understanding that being strong is how you show up for the people you love most. Why silence feels safer than speech. Drew also spoke about why Savannah's silence resonates so loudly. In families where composure is prized, words are chosen carefully, not emotionally. Speaking too soon can feel irresponsible. Waiting feels respectful. Savannah's instinct, Drew explained, is to gather herself fully before addressing anything that affects others. Gratitude first, context second, emotion last. That order matters deeply to her. It's how she was taught to honor serious moments. Drew noted that Savannah's public appearances over the years have always followed this pattern. Even joy is expressed with intention. So when the world expects raw immediacy and doesn't receive it, misunderstanding grows. Drew believes Savannah isn't withholding herself from the public. She's protecting something private that she believes deserves precision, not exposure. Silence, in this case, isn't absence. It's alignment with a value system that treats words as commitments, not outlets. When control becomes exhaustion. As the conversation deepened, Drew's tone shifted from observation to concern. She acknowledged that while this internal discipline has carried Savannah far, it also exacts a cost. Holding oneself together for long periods without release can quietly drain resilience. Drew said the exhaustion doesn't show up as breakdown. It shows up as hyperfunctioning, doing everything right, while feeling nothing is ever enough. In moments of uncertainty, Savannah's instinct is to become even more composed, even more precise. That's when the burden grows heaviest. Drew recognized this pattern because she once lived its opposite, chaos without containment. Both extremes, she noted, create loneliness. Savannah isn't alone in people. She's alone in permission. Permission to not manage, not reassure, not perform steadiness. Drew's hope wasn't for Savannah to change who she is, but to eventually allow herself softness without feeling that it betrays the love she was raised within. Motherhood, as quiet rewriting Drew found particular tenderness in observing Savannah as a mother. She noted how differently Savannah allows her own children to experience emotion. There is room for messiness, for naming fear, for resting without justification. Drew believes this isn't accidental. It's conscious healing. Savannah is honoring her upbringing while gently reshaping its edges. She isn't rejecting strength. She's redefining it. Drew suggested that this current moment may be forcing Savannah to confront the final layer of that transformation, the realization that love does not require constant proof. Watching Savannah parent with openness makes Drew believe that somewhere deep inside, she already knows this truth. The challenge is turning that knowledge inward, allowing herself the same grace she instinctively offers her children. That step, Drew said, may be the hardest one yet, precisely because it feels unfamiliar. Seeing the woman behind the role. What Drew ultimately offered wasn't revelation, but reframing. She asked that people see Savannah not as distant or performative, but as profoundly loyal to the values that formed her. Loyalty, in this case, looks like steadiness. Drew hopes this understanding softens expectations rather than intensifying scrutiny. Savannah doesn't need to prove care through visibility. She has been showing care her entire life through responsibility. Drew's words weren't meant to speak for Savannah, but to create space around her. Space where silence isn't misread and composure isn't mistaken for coldness. Drew believes that when resolution eventually comes, Savannah may need time not to explain, but to exhale, to step out of the role she knows so well and into something quieter, something unmeasured. That transition deserves patience, not demand. Carrying the truth. Gently, Drew ended the conversation with something that lingered long after the call ended. She said that understanding someone's inner wiring is an act of kindness, not exposure. Savannah's story isn't about mystery or spectacle. It's about how deeply love can shape behavior long after childhood ends. Drew asked that this insight be carried gently, without urgency or judgment. The world doesn't need Savannah to be more emotional. It needs to be more compassionate. If there is a lesson here, it's that strength learned in love can still ache when love feels uncertain, and that ache deserves dignity. Drew didn't frame this as an ending, but as an opening, a chance for empathy to replace speculation, a reminder that even the most composed people are still human, still daughters, still shaped by voices that taught them how to survive. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let that truth simply exist,